Hello, welcome to today's webinar, the Unified Spatial Platform Building a Map-Centric Asset Management Ecosystem. This is the final session of our Connect Me Asset Mapping Event Series, GIS at the Center, Spatially Intelligent Asset Management Ecosystems. I'm Tracy Quant. For those of you who have attended the 3 previous sessions, Jennifer is unable to join us today. I will do my best to fill in. Also, for those who attended the first 2 sessions, you may notice a branding difference. We are excited to announce that after 4 successful years as Brightly Software, a Siemens company, we are officially transitioning fully to Siemens brand. We are now Siemens Asset Management Software. You can see the press release and the resources to learn more about that. I serve as the government campaign manager at Siemens Asset Management Software, and I'll moderate the event today. Before we get started, I'd like to run a quick poll of the audience to find out where you all are from and what industries and sectors you work in. The poll will pop up on your screen momentarily, so please be sure to fill it in and hit submit. There it is. Hopefully you guys will all fill that in. It really helps us to understand who's here because we can better tailor our discussion and our story to what's most relevant to you. We'd like to have a very interactive event today, so please do fill out the polls. There'll be a couple other ones as well as this one, and put any questions that you have in the Q&A space that's located at the bottom of the navigation bar of your screen. You don't need to raise your hand or anything, just put your questions in there and we'll all be monitoring them. We will respond to questions as we go along and at the end. So put them in at any time. Anything that triggers an interest for you, please go ahead and put a question in. I'm sure other people have the same question. Also, please be sure to participate in the polls. And as you do leave at the end of the presentation today, there'll be a survey, and we would love for you to also fill that out. It really does help us to customize our content so it's relevant to the audience that's interested. For information about speakers, links to parts 1, 2, and 3 of this series, the event agenda, and links for much more information, click the Resources tab at the bottom of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be available for download on demand after the event. You'll receive an email notifying you when the recording is available. This educational opportunity is being made possible by Siemens. I'm very excited to announce today's feature speaker, Annie Anand. She is business process manager at City of Fort Worth, and she's going to join Mike Murphy, our technical program and product marketing lead here at Siemens Asset Management Software, who has been running these events so far, and he'll lead this conversation today as well. Over the course of this series, we've built the spatial data foundations for asset management, modeled linear and network infrastructure in the field, and extended GIS inside the building. Now it's time to bring every thread together and look ahead to what a truly unified map-centric asset management ecosystem looks like for local government. Helping you bring it all together is what this session is about today. We'll be presenting in a conversational format, and we hope you will join in through the Q&A. So before we get started with today's session, let's take a look at the poll results. So most of you are in local government. That's fantastic and makes sense because Annie's going to be able to really give you some fantastic insights to what she's been doing for her local government. Almost everybody is in the United States, not surprising there either. A lot of land, public administration planning, transportation, public information, public works and utilities, and other. If you want to share the other, we would love to know what that is in the Q&A as well. And a good variety on the size of populations, a lot over 100,000, but people, really across the board for those population sizes. So that is fantastic. I think we've got a really good mix of folks for this presentation. I'm very excited to listen and learn with all of you. So now let's get started so we have as much time as possible for later in the Q&A. Over to you, Mike and Annie.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our final session, GIS at the Center. I'm just looking for my share screen button. I swear they move it every time.
Check the more. I think it may go to more and then share.
There we go. All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining us in our final session here today. The Grand Vision is coming together and I'm more excited than ever. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on our series and I've realized that even I'm taking something away from this, which is probably the most exciting thing for me. And that's that GIS professionals like you and I actually find this interesting, engaging, and promising. I've been evangelizing GIS for 25 years. Oof. 25 years makes me feel a quarter of a century. That's not better. So anyway, a long time that I've been evangelizing GIS. And this isn't some shiny new object that loses its value in a few months. It's so much more than that. And right before I hopped on, I was thinking of a good analogy. Just think about smartphones for a minute and all of the things that they replaced. And I doubt anybody on the phone misses carting around a Walkman, a digital planner, a Rolodex, and all of the other various tools that the smartphone has replaced. GIS is another Swiss Army knife. It can do the same thing. A quick recap for you. One line each. Session 1, GIS is the connective tissue for asset management, not just a mapping tool. Session 2, outdoor networks, linear assets, cascade failures, hazard exposure, all of which is addressed. Session 3, indoor GIS, emergency response, facility condition, indoor and outdoor unity. Today, we're going to bring it all together, a complete asset management implementation, which is not a pilot or a mapping upgrade. And if you leave today thinking of GIS as a mapping tool, I have not done my job. As Tracy mentioned, we have a very special guest with us today, Annie Anand, who's the business process manager at City of Fort Worth. She supports technology-driven solutions across transportation, innovation, data analytics, infrastructure, and asset management for the city of Fort Worth, Texas. And she's dedicated to making complex geospatial information accessible, improving data sharing, strengthening collaboration among planners, engineers, and partner agencies. And we're going to carve out some time to let Annie give you her story today. She's not just a GIS professional talking head on the screen here. She's an actual practitioner, someone in the real world who's taken this from ideation to practice.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here, Mike.
Thanks, Annie. And I'll be tossing it over to Annie for some of her opinions on the stuff that we're talking about, in addition to her giving us her story. So some of this is going to be a review, right? We're tying all the threads together here. And so let's do a quick recap, right? We had 3 failures that we expected our GIS solutions to fix, right? The 3 gaps. The data strategy gap. GIS is visualization only in many cases. It's not the authoritative record. The same asset lives in 4 systems with 4 different IDs, not persistent. Oh, what a nightmare for a data quality guy, right? The integration gap. No real-time sync. The close work orders don't update back to GIS. So there's a huge gap there. IoT readings go nowhere. They just kind of die on the screen. The org positioning gap. In many cases, GIS is a department, not a platform. When GIS is at the edge of the organizational chart, we're also at the edge of every decision. I'll go back to our 2 very vivid examples here, right? So the 2 a.m. water main break, and you've got your crews rushing around, maybe 40 minutes, an hour, to tracing the proper paper map, getting to where they need to be to fix the problem. All of that takes 5 minutes with GIS. You don't have to hunt for the paper map. It's right at your fingertips. How about when that retiring employee's institutional knowledge walks out the door with them when they retire? We had an example that I brought up where a fellow retired and he forgot to tell his replacement that every morning for 30 years he came into work and flipped a switch to keep a piece of machinery running. And on his very first day of retirement, that machine went down because nobody knew to flip the switch. Probably happens more often than we know. So these are not technology failures by any stretch of the imagination. These are strategy failures. And every single one of them has a real dollar amount attached to it. Annie, does any of this sound familiar to you?
100%. Exactly. For the past couple decades, I think that's exactly what we've been dealing with at, multiple municipalities. It's something that, I was asked multiple times, scan this person's brain, they're retiring in 2 months. So I would love to take this further in your future slides to share how we scan people's brains.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mike,
it's a real problem. Tracy?
I think this is a great time for a poll. I'd love to see what kind of gaps the folks in the audience are facing. So it's popped up for you guys here. Which of these gaps are you experiencing with your organization or community? We would love to see this. It's one choice, but all of the above is an available option if all three of these are challenging you today. So please do give us your take on which gaps are most important to try and solve for your community or audience. And I imagine, Annie, you're probably have worked with trying to address all of these gaps, and I imagine we will probably hear quite a bit about them later on down the road.
Absolutely. They definitely do sound familiar.
Excellent.
I mean, that's not bad news, right? The fact that this sounds familiar to you is not bad news. It's good news, right? These are common problems. There's a common thread that all of us can relate to here, and all of us will leave this session with the ammunition that we can take back to really pitch and make our case to be successful in this transformation.
Absolutely.
So that
Hopefully
transformation. Oh, go ahead, Tracy. Do we have the results?
Yeah, I figure we have the poll results. Here we go. So yeah, looks like a lot of people have all of the above, which I was kind of imagining might be the case. And definitely a lot of integration gap, which again, no surprise. We definitely see this as one of the big challenges is just trying to get all of these different data sources and systems to work together. So thank you all who voted. This is very helpful. Gives Annie and Mike a great idea of who they're talking to for the rest of the session. So up to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So the vision, where are we taking this? And this really sums it up in one line, right? Beyond the map. So a map answers, where is it? A spatial intelligence platform does a lot more than that. And I'll state the vision directly, right? Any authorized user, any asset, one click, you get location, condition, history, life cycle, risk, criticality, replacement date. I mean, that's a huge amount of context from a single click that simply isn't possible without a unified platform. And that's the floor. That's the floor. That's not the ceiling. That's where we're starting, and it's not where we're going to end. And the real shift is that GIS stops being a go look something up tool, and it becomes the system that's constantly watching, connecting, and reasoning. And so, as I mentioned, a spatial intelligence platform answers what's happening, what will happen, and what do we have to do? And it does a lot of that automatically. And it's not a product that you buy. It's a platform that you build on top of what you already have. And we've dived into that. We're not starting from zero here in many cases. In many cases, you possess all of the tools at your disposal to be successful here. It's just that they're not talking to one another. And that's what we need to accomplish. We have to have that unified. So let's talk about it. How does it actually work? What does it deliver when it's done? I mean, we've talked about the various different pieces. Let's start to pull it all together. So the engine of this is live. It's connected and it's compounding. And that last word is very important, right? The three connection types that make all of this function: real-time feeds, the Internet of Things, right? They push live readings, pressure anomaly, auto updates, records, flags a risk, and can trigger a work order. And with the daily advances in artificial intelligence, there's a real opportunity here to automate even more than we currently can. Further, we can do a scheduled sync, right? A CMMS and an inspection, they sync on a cadence, right? And the record is current by design, not by memory. That's important. When field crews are collecting and changing information in your source database, you want that truth to reflect accurately to everyone who's viewing the data. And so you have event-driven updates. Valve operated, repair done, condition changed, and this is near real time updating, and that's a big paradigm shift from where we're coming from to where we're going to head, and the value compounds. I latched on to that word. It's very important. Every work order, every Internet of Thing reading, every sensor, every inspection, every capital project makes these records smarter. Compounding spatial intelligence. It's worth more every year that you run it, not less. And the asset picture gets smarter with every interaction. And of course, as you know, data is not static. You can always change the way that you've organized it, your data schema. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is possible, and it is a pathway that can get you to where we want to be. Interdependencies at scale, and this is something I'm sure will resonate with a lot of you in the audience. And I'm going to take a call back to session 2, outdoor, and session 3, indoor. Now we're going to model the interdependencies across the whole portfolio and the jurisdiction scale. 2 examples, a spatial query. Every asset within 500 feet of a road project we can identify, right? Is there collateral impact to these assets? We can catch the water main break that should be coordinated with other departments to make sure we're not digging up a street, repaving it, and then digging it back up again 2 weeks later to fix a different piece of infrastructure. All of that planning is fundamental to the unified system that we've been talking about. We break down those silos, we break down those walls, and we deliver the tools and the mechanisms that allow not just the data to talk to one another, but each other. We break down the silos, we share data, and I'm sure you all know from experience that the more data you have at your fingertips, the more effective you can be. So I'm going to shift a little bit. Asset management, infrastructure intelligence, we can see the consequences before we commit to the work, right? Including the cost of not funding things. And that gets into our more advanced functionality that we've been touching on: simulation, digital twins, 3D models. All of that is definitely possible with the tools we have today. Every example here has a dollar figure. The spatial query, picking up every asset within 500 feet of a road project, making sure that your construction infrastructure projects are coordinated. Every example has a dollar figure, and that's your ammunition. That's your case to take to the decision maker, the CFO, the person signing the checks. We can make a real impact by doing this, and here's the value it will bring us. Annie, before I move on, in your experience with Fort Worth, have you seen any examples of a cascading failure? And were you able to catch it before it snowballed, or was it something that you had to deal with mitigation and management of after the fact?
Luckily, we didn't get into mitigation, but failures, yes. If you're doing some real work, failures are bound to occur. But where people like us who have system knowledge and data knowledge come into play is how we can reduce the impact of such failures. And so I did want to share, you're talking about the construction infrastructure projects. That is the need of the hour from, we're talking project coordination. Fort Worth is a city of 1 million people, and we've got 13 different departments. Can and does one department talk to the other one? Only if you force them, only if you lure them in, only if you see there's benefit, only if you think there is return on investment of their data, only if you see that there is a return on investment on their time. And I believe that, if you build a foundation the way that you're talking, Mike, I think that will give them all of the above. So, yes, Fort Worth has experienced, and we're working towards bridging that communication, calling it project coordination project. It's all about how we can coordinate with the system that you're mentioning.
Yeah. And again, there's real dollar value attached to that in savings. You cut out a lot of superfluous costs, and when that savings is realized, that budget can be redirected to other projects. So that's a great segue for us. I'm actually going to toss it over to Annie to take over and give us her story.
Thank you, Mike. I'm just going to build upon Mike's story, or I'm just going to bring in the value of the centralized data. Imagine the power of a system where everybody is in the same system with the same data, looking at it at the same time, right? We're not scrambling for spreadsheets. We're not running after somebody's file on a C drive. We know that this is the most authoritative, most backed up data, most accurate data, the best data that's possible. And we know this is the true source of all information. It is our information system. Imagine the power of such a system, the centralized database. And it's not just a database imagine if you add geo to the database, the geo database. So all your assets, where they are, how much work's done against an asset, how much money is spent or invested for an asset, how old is an asset, all that information with a click of a button. That's a system that we're dreaming about, and that dream is not far away. For it's already done it. We've got all the integrations in place. We know our work orders are coming in. We also know the complaints coming in. We've tied in our CRM 311 system. We've tied in our work order system. We've tied in our asset information system all together in GIS. We also know the information coming in from our weather sensors. So how cool is it, and how easy it is for our executives, our decision makers, to depend on a system like that, which then helps them make $1 million decisions for a city that's, as big as 1 million people. So, yeah, I mean, I vouch for a system. I think that if you have laid your foundation right, it's easy. It's easy. Only it's easy if you have your foundation built out correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've been putting together some documentation on my side for some things. And I keep coming back to the analogy that it's a lot like Lego bricks, right? You lay down one piece, and that's your golden brick, and for me, that usually starts with data quality. Uh, but then you build on top of that. You don't have to build the entire Lego set all at one time. You can do it one piece at a time. And every time you add a new piece, you're delivering more value to your stakeholders.
Correct. And just for the GIS people who are interested in building that foundation, Mike, we did refer to the Esri's data models, whether it be stormwater or any asset that you're looking for. That's an easy way to start. It gives you a big jump start on what you should have in your database. So that gives us a good design. And that's what Fort Worth went for, is to grab the industry standards for each of our asset types. And then, of course, we've got data that's worth last 20 years. So it didn't start overnight, didn't happen overnight, but we kept on building one on top of the other. But again, we're also catching on to nuances. So we've we say we're done building, but it's never done because you keep on upgrading yourself to meet with the need of the hour. There was a time, Mike, 20 years ago when I personally was going out in the field and mapping every inlet in the ground, correct? Inlet on the ground, on the map, on the ground, on the map. I think we've come way far away from just identifying where your asset is to adding, like you talked about, the business intelligence, correct? We're bringing in the intelligence, the location intelligence into decision making.
Absolutely. And that intelligence, it stems from a very simple principle of attribution, right? The more data points you collect and organize about a particular object or feature, the more the easier it's going to be for you to manage it. And I think that's, I love your story, Annie, and I have one question. It may not be an easy one to answer, but I'm dying to know. So Fort Worth has obviously started this transition. They understand the value of making data centralized and accessible to everyone, federating it, right? Was there a single event or happening that you can point to say this was the catalyst that convinced all of the stakeholders that this was the right way to go? Maybe not, but if there was, I'd love to hear it.
I mean, there's multiple examples. The latest I can state is planning for bond, right? Bond 2026 is what we call it. Um, you cannot plan in a vacuum. You, as the pavement team, cannot just plan in a vacuum. You need to understand what's going on with the water department. You also need to understand what's going on with the regional agencies. Let's bring in TxDOT, correct? There is a need for coordinating this information, not just within your organization, but we're also expected to coordinate with our neighboring agencies, bringing in grant funding, bringing in or understanding, project status, the timeline on projects, because these projects are not done overnight. Building a new street or resurfacing a new street or fixing a storm drain or taking care of a large detention basin, these take time. And to be able to cluster these projects and making sure your investment is targeted in specific areas, you can't do this until your information or your data is centralized, right? You have to understand water's doing, you have to understand stormwater, you have to understand pavement to eventually call it a big investment program. So, yes, I mean, we deal with this on a daily basis. It's something that we need. It is a need of the hour at Fort Worth, even as of now, as we plan our bond for 2026.
Awesome. And I wasn't going to touch on this, but you said a magic word for me, and it's databases, right? I had a manager and a mentor for many, many years who had a personal vendetta against spreadsheets. And he would demonstrate the value of what an actual database can do by building data pipelines and querying the database and providing that information back out to stakeholders that you simply couldn't do from a spreadsheet. And so, that's one of the value propositions, that you can take immediately to the decision makers, and you can say, look, by keeping all of this data in a database as opposed to a spreadsheet, we federate it and it becomes available to everyone to use. And what Annie was just describing is exactly the shift that we've been building towards this whole series. We want to stop being a GIS department. We want to stop, basic output, and we want to become the single source of truth. And that term has a lot of power behind it. A single source of truth is incredibly powerful. And we want to be able to use location intelligence to stop that. We want it to become the organization's single source of truth.
Yes, absolutely. Mike, and it doesn't, you're not just creating data for in an unstructured way. data needs to be in a database in a structured way, and it doesn't happen magically. You have to make sure you have data governance. You have to make sure that you have a data strategy. And both those need to be in place because they act as a guardrail for designing your database. And we can certainly touch on that a little more if there are questions regarding strategy and governance. But in short, it's just nothing but providing guidelines to the design of your database. How do you name your feature classes? What all is included in it, and things like that, and attribution, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And all, as I mentioned, all of that context, all of that data that is associated with an object is, it's the compounding value that I was talking about before. It really allows you to dig into something on multiple different levels, multiple different data points easily and effectively. And yeah, I think centralizing the data is one of the first steps to being successful here. And in some cases, that will take some evangelization. I'm sure of it. If you're going to go and try and tip the Apple cart over on a legacy system that's been in place for 15 years, almost certainly you're going to get some pushback from somebody, right? But these are the data points that I want you to keep in your pocket. You can pull those out as rebuttals, as defensible statements whenever someone has a doubt or anything like that about our vision here. The data points exist, and the value is real and demonstratable. But what does it look like?
Yeah. So what does it look like? So imagine a set of rows and columns that has no organization. I think we will be dealing with the same issues like we dealt with spreadsheets. And so
Mhm.
coming back to what we initially talked about, the power of one system, one database, everybody in it at the same time trying to get the same information. I think that's going to be, if we don't have things organized, if we don't have our data organized, if we don't have guardrails, if we don't have standards, to be able to answer that big picture will not be possible, certainly will not be possible. And we're talking analytics, we're talking big data analytics. So you do not want to create data that is not meaningful. Creating meaningful data from the start is extremely important for the ROI of your data. So, I mean, we as a team within Transportation and Public Works at Fort Worth spend quite a bit of our time creating that data. It takes an investment.
Yes.
And if the data doesn't turn out to be useful or it has no need for it, I think that is a waste of taxpayer dollar. And so I look at our data as an asset, and there has to be an ROI of the data that we're creating. And if it has no structure, we're talking AI, we're talking predictive analytics, it will not work. It will not work. So data standardization is a must, and there are tools available out there to help you standardize your GIS data.
Yeah, absolutely. This is timely to something I've been working on this week, which is creating an audit trail for changes made within the databases to objects in the GIS, and the impact of not having that audit trail is actually huge. And one of the examples that I used here was let's say that someone moves a high voltage power line 50 feet to the left, but never documents it. That's a big deal, and there's real safety concerns and planning concerns that go around that. And we can kind of mitigate that risk by using this centralized asset management and location intelligence platform. So further, what big results look like, and I didn't notice it when I was making or reviewing or editing my slides, but big results are not necessarily big things. Small changes can have big impacts, and I want to be careful. You don't have to, show up to work next week and build a complicated GIS laboratory to start pumping out features and functionality that nobody actually needs, right? Going back to just the centralization of the data, taking it out of spreadsheets, making it federated, that's a big result. And people will see the value in that. But we can talk about the practical results, and lots of them. But this is the visions session, right? This is our pie in the sky. Where can we take this? What can we do? And so there are big results that we can drive with this technology. So we've covered the foundation. So let's talk about a complete implementation. Complete, as Annie pointed out, nothing's ever done in GIS. It's just, it gets moved to a different state of completeness, right? So you've got your foundation covered. Now, the complete implementation, once it's up and running, that's going to get your stakeholders excited. It will fire them up with 4 capabilities, each with a result. I mentioned AI, right? AI assisted spatial prioritization. That's a mouthful, but man, is it cool. Fewer emergency repairs, more predictable capital budgets, automatic routing of technicians and subject matter experts who are the closest text to the actual problem. So proximity-based AI scheduling and routing. And that's just scratching the surface of what we can do with AI. I mentioned the potential for incorporating it into the IoT ecosystem. It could, on its own, manage certain assets that used to require a human to go and manually intervene with. So we can get AI to actuate, sensors or any of the other Internet of Things that we've developed, and people can do that from a central command center, and that's GIS. And that's kind of, as you bring this vision together, as you explain this to your stakeholders, this is the type of stuff that I think gets them excited. Of course, they're going to want some practical value delivered with it and justification on why this is important. But we've already covered that. And so, you have that document. You've got the boring document already. This is the exciting document. What can we do? So I'm going to cover 4 capabilities, each with a real result. And I was talking about the AI-assisted spatial prioritization. Here's a hyperbolic example, but it really drives home the point. Let's say your municipality has a nuclear power station in it, and you get a notification that nuclear power station is not doing great. Well, you don't want to send someone who is an audiovisual expert in to fix that nuclear power plant, even though they're the closest technician there. So by having a subject matter expert database and by leveraging the different technologies, you can always assure that the correct person is routed to the correct job to make the correct fixes. That's really powerful. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, but just a casual observation in life is that we do many things very inefficiently, and this could really help us to tighten that up. The predictive maintenance by location. Capital dollars go to the assets that need them first. This isn't a 30-year plan that you've just, you've hit a target date on for repaving a street. This is predictive. This is intelligent. And again, that intelligence compounds the more we use it. And so we can actually direct our dollars to the assets that need them first, and not just something that's on a schedule. And Annie, I don't know if you have any, real world examples of this in practice, but I see it as being very, very powerful.
Absolutely very powerful. We are very close. We're excited because we laid the foundation right, correct? And so I would like to empower our users to think AI as a true partner in the asset stewardship. But you can only think AI as your true partner if and only if your foundation is laid out correctly and if you have the right data and you have the right data design, that will actually bring up the intelligence of your system. And so AI can only be that intelligent, as intelligent as your data, is what I want to say. Yes, it is something that we're already working with in Fort Worth. Once again, we've got a strategy, we've got a policy for artificial intelligence. And so we have a guardrail. We make sure that everything that we deal with has a human involved. So it's not robots and machines telling where the money goes, but there is definitely a human involved in the final decision making. We want to be very careful how we are stewards of our tax dollars. We're also very careful with our residents, how we serve them. And so, yes, it will increase efficiencies. It will bring the ROI of all the data that we've collected. But at the same time, we'll also maintain our data security, which is definitely something that is expected out of us as stewards to data and information.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just unpacked a whole nother session that we could do on security implementations. Next time, we'll get that one in. So what about other types of data that we may not be leveraging today that could have a really big impact? How about climate risk overlays? Capital plans can be built for the infrastructure's whole remaining life, and more importantly, its environmental factors, right? A sensor or a valve that lives in a climate-controlled, environment, protected from the elements, is a different piece of equipment than one that is in a flood zone that occasionally gets swamped with salt water, right? And so being able to have those environmental context cues for the types of objects that you're working with is just another really powerful way that you can leverage data in GIS to form a plan. You're not just coming up with some one solution. It's a coherent plan that takes you from point A to point B, and we can get there even better when we start thinking about the digital twin. And as you know from the other sessions we've had, the digital twin is something that I find very exciting. The map itself, a paper map, is like the first simulation that humans created. It's like the original simulation. It's a model of our world, right? And by doing that, we're able to view larger geographies with that context baked into it. And that's a huge advancement for humanity. One that's a little bit more on the nose here is, remember trying to get from point A to point B before you had in-car navigation or Google Maps. You had a printed map in your hand. You had to stop at the gas station and ask for directions. Just that simple tool really made some big results. And so I see the digital twin becoming the next big thing in GIS. The entire world, every asset, organized, numbered, tracked. It makes the data geek in me just smile. You can see my face. What a world to live in, where we have all of that information directly at our fingertips. Amazing stuff.
Yes. Mike, I just was excited to add one little quick thing. Digital twins also help in the planning process. It helps our residents visualize what's coming, instead of verbally sharing what's coming. So designing highways and bridges and putting it in a digital twin has really made a huge impact for us.
Hey, that's a really, really great call out, because your citizens are direct stakeholders here. And this is a mechanism to deliver them information in a way that it's easy for them to consume and understand. Sending them a schematic of a construction project or something like that is not particularly useful to most people. But conveying that data to them in a way that they can consume it is huge, because again, those are your funders, those are your stakeholders, your constituents, and keeping them informed with the correct information is incredibly powerful. And then you can take it even one step further, and there's an audit trail, there's some accountability where if you wanted to, you could expose that to your citizenry and they could actually see where the dollars went. There's myriad ways that we can leverage our tool here to satisfy our different stakeholders.
Yes. Mike, if I can interrupt for a second, I think this is a great chance for a poll. I would love to see how our audience feels these results can help their communities and what kind of things they would be most excited about moving forward in the future. While the audience is answering this question, it's on your screen now, folks, so please do go ahead and answer. We've got a great question that relates really well to what you're talking about. The question is, Annie, are you effectively building the foundation of Fort Worth Digital Twin today? Sounds like yes, you are.
Yes.
And do you see the next step being the ability to simulate projects? For example, seeing the impact of a road, water, or stormwater investment across multiple departments before the city commits the dollars?
We're ready for it. We are ready because, again, the foundation was laid right. We have integrations with our IoTs and our sensors that are in the streets already. We have a designated hot corridor, is what we call it. It has, we're playing with all sorts of sensors, making sure the data comes in real time or near real time. We're coordinating with the climate data, seeing the impacts on the road surface, merging that with the Vision Zero and the accidents and the crashes, seeing if, any of those conditions that we can monitor and then control after the fact. So yes, we're doing big things. We're excited, but I again go back to the foundation. If your foundation is right, building blocks come very easy. You can make big things happen quickly.
For sure. For sure.
Hopefully we've got some results. There we go. Oh, predictive maintenance informed by location. Excellent. That's fantastic. And it seems like a great place to start for many of the local communities and municipalities, right? It's something that really takes what they're all already doing and just greatly enhances it very quickly and effectively with a lot of extra wonderful data, right? Digital twins definitely has a strong interest, and I think Annie, some of your comments may have swayed the results of that poll a little bit. They might have moved more towards digital twin, talking about how amazing what you guys are seeing what that is. But definitely everybody is interested in all of these pieces. So thank you all very much for responding to that, and I'll let you go back to your discussion. Thanks.
So, and that poll was the one that I was the most excited to see the results from. And honestly, I expected a more even distribution, 25% for each of the four categories. Seeing that 55% of you are interested in the predictive maintenance aspects of this is very enlightening. That's more than half of the audience. That's the primary focus where they want to bring this. And I mean, yeah, let's do it. I think it's, obviously it applies in all of those categories. But if that's where we as GIS professionals feel like we can start making the biggest impact, immediately, then absolutely, let's do it. That was an exciting poll. I've been waiting for that one for like 2 weeks to see what the audience said. I was very excited for it. And so, the digital twin is, we talked about a couple examples of modeling, an infrastructure project, which, is not an insignificant thing, and it carries a large dollar amount with it. There are even larger modeling and simulation exercises that we can perform with this. In some cases, some municipalities are managing campuses of buildings that number in the hundreds. And in some cases, a new building needs to be built, and building that building in a simulated digital twin before you even spend $1 on it is an incredibly powerful planning tool, and it ensures that you're putting the money where it matters the most, which for your citizens is the most important thing, I'm sure. So, and Annie's story is a real world example of this coming into fruition. It's not science fiction. If you sit in a room and you try to explain this to folks who may not have a advanced level of understanding of GIS and spatial science, you can materially demonstrate the value of this. This is, again, not science fiction. It's real. It's being implemented today by actual practitioners. They have measurably better decision making. Everything is faster. Everything is cheaper. It's hard. Of course, I'm biased, but it's hard to find a negative about any of this at all. It really is just one positive on top of another, and it builds such an amazing infrastructure that the limits are unknown at this point. I think we can really leverage this technology for our individual use cases. This is not specific to government or municipalities. You can scale this model out to private industry. I'll be honest with you, I use a relatively similar model for managing my own property and assets because I'm a GIS nerd, and when I'm not working, I sit down and just do GIS for fun. And so, it's scalable. It's a practical model. There's real value in it that you can start to deliver right away. Some use cases, and these again, we're doing some recap here. We've touched on these before. The water main break that used to require, a filing cabinet full of paper maps, people running around, all while this water is damaging surrounding infrastructure that was not even originally part of the problem. Now you've got one of those cascading failures. It's washing out the road. It's not just leaking. So that's a big deal. And in this case, the single click prevented a lot of that collateral damage. I think the example that we used specifically was 2 weeks of data gathering on a $340,000 replacement now takes 10 seconds. That's not hyperbole. That's real facts. It really increases the efficiency. The coordinated project. How many of you have seen the same piece of your street get dug up over and over and over again? It's one of the realities of municipal management is things are unpredictable, right? And so, things happen that nobody could have predicted. But every tool that we have at our disposal that makes things more efficient is powerful, and we can leverage. The prevented failures, right? So this goes beyond just stemming a failure before it becomes catastrophic. This stops them before they even start, So we have pressure sensors that catch a drop 72 hours earlier than a maintenance crew on a schedule would have come in and been able to identify that. So we've identified that failure before it actually happened, and we can route the right people there at the right time to make that repair. It just increases efficiency. So none of these are about a prettier map, right? We all know that maps are pretty, and I love, my traditional cartography skills to make a beautiful wall-mounted map that I can give to my family member. But this isn't about that. Go ahead, Annie.
Mike, yeah, I wanted to stop you there and kind of share one challenge that I'm dealing with currently. We're talking about our pavement team and we're talking about our water team. As we plan out our 5-year plan for pavement, we're looking at data from water so that we don't dig our streets twice. Well, water shared a really pretty map. And like you said, it's not about the maps. And my director came to me and said, Annie, can you get this overlaid with whatever we have in our pavement 5-year plan? Well, interestingly, as Annie digs deeper, it's just a map. There is no data behind it. Those were just bare drawings on a map. They have no meaning to me nor can I, have any return on the investment of that pretty map or that drawing. So I had to dig deeper, go back and buy some extra time and digitize and create that data that Water had created and bring it into our GIS database and then serve that for analysis for our pavement team as they plan out their 5-year plan. So yes,
Mhm.
we're not perfect, but these flaws do happen. People do not follow standards and guidelines. And these are areas where then we miss the boat a bit. But again, if you have a platform, it's easy to bring those back in and make that happen. And like you said, project coordination is huge. It ultimately leads to savings and I think it's quite equivalent to, scanning people's brains. It's like, okay, hey, the city engineer left. It's okay. We've got the 5-year plan in our GIS. So, we've scanned every bit of the plan.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it becomes, in phases, right? You can implement this, step by step. There isn't a silver bullet that I can offer you that's going to, take care of all of your problems with a single solution. But there's so much power in here, and we can leverage all of that to get the results that we need. And again, none of it is about that pretty map. It's about extracting the value of the data that lies behind it, as Annie pointed out.
Yeah, and thanks. I just came back because we have an interesting question that aligns to what you were just talking about. You were talking about, losing someone who retires and all of the institutional knowledge that goes away with that. The question here is, with AI now able to work across work orders, GIS, inspection histories, and operating procedures, do you see an opportunity to capture that institutional knowledge before it walks out the door so that we have that available for the next generation?
I want to be optimistic and say, yes, absolutely, we can do that. But again, there's no silver bullet here, and we can't guarantee that institutional knowledge doesn't walk out the door when somebody leaves. But we can mitigate it. Not every piece of information is walking out the door when somebody retires, maybe just one, and we over time, again, the compounding value is that, obviously AI it's not a person, but it can retain and learn from things over time. So yes, it can absolutely build some institutional knowledge for you. It's up to you to decide how to extract and leverage that data. And I think AI is probably one of the most exciting things that's happening in tech these days. And I have to be honest with you, I was a skeptic at first. I thought it was just a shiny object. But I've been able to leverage it very well in my day to day and increase my efficiency and productivity. And honestly, that allows me to work on cool stuff, right? And not just filling out JIRA tickets and stuff like that. I get to focus on the research and development part of my job, making everything better in GIS. We are out of time. We're at the top of the hour. Real quick, I just want to fly through this slide. I think it's one of my last ones. This is just the path forward. I spoke about phases, and we can lay this out in 3 simple phases that allow us to make that incremental progress that I've been talking about, right? So, sorry, one sec. Uh, And so we're making incremental value. And the phase 1 is probably something that you already have mostly in place here, right? The spatial data foundation, your GIS infrastructure, all of that exists today. In many cases, it's not speaking to each other as we pointed out, but that's phase 1. Lay the foundation, lay that golden brick, identify your data quality requirements, put your schemas in effect. All of that is the foundation to what we've been talking about. And like I said, in many cases, you've already got that. Phase 2, we're going to start to integrate those. Oh, Annie, go ahead if you had a comment.
No, I'm loving this. This is great. And we are at we completed phase 2 and we're ready to leap into phase 3. So, yes, thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, of course. And it is, it's a cumulative exercise. Keep demonstrating value. Each one of the phases brings a different bucket of value to your stakeholders, and be sure, to highlight that. And so, phase two, integration, automation. That's where some of us are today. It's where some of us want to get to. And then, of course, phase three is that the golden zone. That's where we want to. That's where we all want to get to. Leveraging all of the power that GIS technology offers to us. And then we get the vision. It's realized. It's real. It's not science fiction. It's in your hands. So you can audit your integration points, identify your highest consequence asset classes, and have that positioning conversation. Good asset management should not be difficult. The data you have is the data you need. It's mostly already there. It's just a matter of organizing, orchestrating, and coordinating all of it to deliver the powerful solutions that we've been touching.
Absolutely.
So the final kicker, right? So you spend 4 sessions building the case, right? Learning the knowledge. How do we bring this to our leaders? How do we form that foundation? How do we build off of our successes? I'm gonna be direct. Just go do it. Let's just start doing it. Don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Don't wait for, the sky to open up with a sign. Just start doing it. I think I used an example in one of our first sessions of, it's dead simple. You've got a park and you've got trash cans in the park, but you're still finding trash on the ground. And it's a real simple example of what GIS can do. But you can analyze where you're finding the trash on the ground, and you can figure out where to put another trash can. That's value. It's small value. It's incremental value, and the same principle applies across every different asset type that you do. So that's it. That's my closing line. Tracy, I don't know if we have additional questions. I know we're over time, so I think we probably need to wrap. But
yeah, I think we do have a couple of questions, but we can probably answer those offline. So thank you, everyone who did supply. Annie, I'd love to give you a moment to, for any final words you have, and then we'll close out the webinar.
Sure. I love to share like 4 bullet points. The key to asset management. This is learned through experience, and I thought this is a good platform for me to at least share with my GIS friends. So bullet point number 1, single asset ID and authoritative asset record, real-time updates, reduce your network tracing, for looking at old spreadsheets and go down to just data. Reduce dependency on institutional knowledge. The digital system now carries the logic and the history. And then better capital planning because you're looking at the same data and the same system at the same time. And then definitely go for the cross-departmental coordination, improve that because you have a GIS platform. So those are my key points that I would share with anybody into asset management. And thank you. It was lovely to be here with all of you.
No, thank you, Annie. We really appreciate your time today. It was very, very informative.
You both. I think we definitely could have filled a whole day with this conversation. I really appreciate you both being here, and Annie sharing your fantastic story with us. Good luck with Fort Worth and rolling the rest of that wonderful GIS capabilities out. And thank you all who joined us today. And hopefully we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.